I've already picked it. So actually, like what happens is Google and Star Wars like got into a conversation early last year on how we want to do things together, and we wanted to give experience of Star Wars on all the Google apps that we have. So what you have to go is like just go google.com/Star Wars, and then you choose the side, dark side or light side. Dark. So you can choose dark side or you can choose light side, and you choose dark side. And then what happens is, as you go through all the Google apps, like let's do like Gmail. So that background change to Star Wars, and then well, let's try YouTube. So what happens is for you to let's pick like whatever. So you see like all the volumes turn into a lightsaber. Or just like a lot of little things in all the Google apps will change to Star Wars experience. And I think it's really cool. So try it. Alright. Thank you so much. I'll hand it off to
I haven't got any Star Wars related stuff. I'm not going to compete with that at all. Okay. So I'm going to come at this from. I'm going to come at this a little bit more from the recruitment side. I've been in Bangkok and Thailand for 12 weeks. So if you didn't think before by looking at me that I'm not from Thailand, you can also understand why I'm not doing a presentation on Zoom advance. But I'm new to Bangkok, I'm new to Thailand, new to Agoda. I have been doing campus recruitment for a few years. I was born the year Star Wars came out. So I think in any bragging rights, it just makes me a lot older. So this is me, brand new in Agoda, 12 weeks. Previous to that, I was in what was called campus recruitment in Expedia, based in London, looking after Europe, Middle East, and Africa. A while before Expedia, I worked for a company called dunnhumby in the days when it wasn't called campus recruitment, because it was all about graduate recruitment. Whereas the market's changed significantly in the last 4 or 5 years. When we talk about campus, we talk about MBA students, we talk about second jobbers, we talk about graduates, we talk about interns, we talk about school leavers as well in the more developed markets. So I work for a company called dunnhumby, who may not be so well known. They are based in Thailand. They're owned by Tesco, and they're the brains and brawn behind Tesco Truckcard, a big analytics company. I'm 4 years there, and then my first graduate recruitment role was with Deutsche Bank, where we were recruiting 300 graduates a year. It seems small potatoes these days. It was quite big in those days. My background before that time, without really doing too much, was in the hospitality industry. So now I'm working for an online travel agent. Kind of come full circle a little bit in recruitment graduates. I started a graduate program in the last century, and have designed and delivered a number of development programs, which is a key thing. And a key thing I'm going to suggest that you want to be looking for and considering the companies that you can apply to. If you go, there's one great, so I'm going to talk a little bit about that as well. So the bits I'm going to cover: the current campus recruitment market. I want to give you some background on this. Not to be scaremongering, there are some big numbers in here. But the relevant candidates and the good candidates do get the jobs. That's always been the case and it always will be, despite what you do in the past. It has to be heard, has to be seen, has to be successful. It is a big market, there's a lot going on, there's a lot of noise, but I'll relate back to that. There are ways to actually get in front of recruiters and get their attention, quite simply. An opportunity at Agoda. It's competitive. That's a campus event from Shanghai last year. This is kind of careers fair, job fair. They still go on. There's a lot of people, a lot of jostling, a lot of noise. You're going to get 45 seconds to about 90 seconds in front of a recruiter. It's not really a good experience for candidates, it's not really a good experience for the organisation. but it does happen. There are a lot of other things that go on, and a lot of opportunities to stand out and how can you see them be heard. So a little pop quiz, just to keep you engaged. There's 3 countries here, 3, I would say, progressive graduate recruitment countries. I've left the US off for no reason other than they're not on the board. But if you want to have a guess, shout out your first answer. How big do you think the graduate market is in the UK? How many graduates are there graduating year on year in the UK? Thousands? A bit higher? 100,000? A little bit higher than that. 350,000 per year graduates. When we're talking about graduates, we're talking about master's students, undergraduates. Now, the India market? 1 million? You read these slides. 1.5. So let's go that way up. China. Oh yeah, you fell down there. 7.6 million. So you're looking in China, you might want to really tune into what I'm about to say. The US market is about 3.7 to 4.5. It's hard to differentiate because they do talk about the college market quite a lot, but that's the scale of what's going on in the graduate recruiting markets. And it's not just campus recruitment, we do see this across all recruitment. That's 2.3 million people, 2.3 million residents in India apply for 368 posts in a low-level government role, and that was early this year, that was September. 150,000 of those applicants were graduates in India. Are you scared yet? It does get better. So what are the chances? What are the chances of you landing the job, the internship, the graduate role? Because year on year, employers are spending tens of millions of pounds and $1 million on their graduate collateral. They're flooding the market with information, with smart, cool websites, with a lot of collateral, a lot of giveaways, mugs, pens. If you short pens, just go to a campus fair, you'll get lots. This is an often trotted out thing you'll read in the news. There's too many graduates and not enough jobs. I've never ever known that to be the case. It's purely just speculation, so don't get hung up on that. It's just not true. Each year, and I'll give you a UK example to see where I've just recently come from, each year in the most progressive markets, graduate employers report that vacancies have gone unfilled. And that's been going on for the last 10, 15 years. Even though the market shifted massively, it's still happening. Now, part of this you could say is down to candidates, part of this you could say down to university and the careers departments that haven't yet grasped the nettle when it comes to employability. That's a whole different presentation. I'm not going to focus too much on that, but there are opportunities. So how do you get from A to B? How do you get from starting your job search, for your internship, for your graduate role, to actually getting that offer? So the first thing you want to have a look at is where you want to work and why. Now, what do you consider when you're looking for your role? Any answers? Shout out any answers. What are you looking for when you're looking for that internship, that graduate role? Experience. Good one, good start. What else might it be? Money. There's no shame in that. I don't work for free, but I don't expect anyone else to. Anything else?
Interesting company.
Interesting company. Good one. All good stuff. All good stuff. You could be looking at, like years ago, it was about money. Now it's about what's the company's corporate social responsibility stance? What's the learning development opportunity? What's the career path? What will I be doing not just in my first job, but in my second, third, and fourth? Do they want to keep me? They just want to kind of, get me to do some cool stuff for a while and then I'll be on. The values. I'm glad you said that because it's a good strike and that which will time nicely into it. Thank you very much. I haven't planted anyone in this audience, by the way. It's a really good audience. I will say, research what you're looking for. Be 100% fully committed to what you're going into. It sounds a lot. You're doing a lot of study. You're busy. You've got exams going. You've got exams going at the time the company's actually looking to speak to you and interview you and get you into their offices to do assessment centres. It takes you away from actually what your goal is to get the or initial goal, which is to get your degree. But if you don't put it into commitment, it will be noticeable in your application. You won't get much further. You rarely get an interview, and you'll start again. And you'll apply to a number of different companies, and it just goes on and on. Now, this is where candidates fall down. Regardless of what universities are or aren't doing, this is an often trodden path by a lot of students. Research the company. There's a lot of information available for students. Companies spend money on their websites. They don't just give you a job description, they're actually telling you what they're looking for. It's a massive, massive cheat sheet If you want to know what they're asking above and beyond the skills for the job, just go on the website. And one easy example is from a previous company of mine, and I know this because I helped write it, but company culture. And the line is, what we are looking for in our people, and our people look for in us. They're actually giving you all this information. This isn't just, don't remember, this isn't relevant to one company in the UK, this is relevant to a lot of organisations globally, because the last thing that any recruiter is going to want you to come to speak to them about on a recruitment fair is, what you're looking for. How do I stand out? What does the company stand for? All these questions, all that information has been answered. You go and ask that question, you'll get that glaze from a recruiter that I've kind of perfected it over the years. You get that glaze as in to say, are you telling me you're coming up here to ask this question, you've waited 10 minutes for your turn, and the first question you've got is what I'm looking for. When all the paraphernalia is on, all the websites up, so your research is crucial. Shortlist. Has anyone applied for an internship recently? How many internship applications have you made for different companies? One? Okay. It does have, did you get the internship or do you not know yet? Fantastic, that's not unusual, it does happen. But there are other people, and I've taken on graduates who say I'm going to do one application. It's risky, but it paid off. There are people who are going to do 50 and 60 applications. Far, far too many. You're not going to get the benefits out of that. You're not going to give 100% of your commitment and time to doing 50 and 60 applications. I would say you want to be looking at less than double figures. You want to look at the companies that mean something to you. If you're a non-smoker and you have a big thing about not smoking, then you're probably not going to want to apply for Philip Morris, even if they've got a really cool job. Or if you don't want to be working all the hours God sends, you're not going to apply to Aldi because you know they're going to absolutely horsewhip you into what you're going to be doing for the next 2 years. So shortlist what you're going to do and pick the top 5 to 7 companies that you really want to work for, and then start your applications. Don't start one and think about who else you're going to apply to. It's not a good experience for you. Spend time on your applications, covered, make them relevant. It's probably the word that I use most when I'm talking to students, when I'm talking about any kind of presentation, even to the people internally. Relevancy here means relevant to the organisation and relevant to the job that you're going for. The effort you make will be rewarded in spades if you're doing a relevant application, telling them what you are and what you can do compared to what they're looking for. It will overlap nicely. Here's an example I got a couple of days ago, and I had to take the person's name off, so I feel really embarrassed if I put them up there. So this is a LinkedIn email that I received a couple of days ago from someone who's kind of speculatively looking to come work for Agoda. Have a guess, how far do you think I read into this email before I deleted it, or before I decided to stop reading and reply? Yeah, I think we're looking at, I should missed it my first name, but I'm not going to cry about that. Hewlett-Packard. I know that company. I've never worked for them. I'm not working for them now. Now, it may sound harsh, but I'm getting hundreds and hundreds of speculative emails and in-mails and CVs per day, and making my mind to reply then, which is really, really unfortunate. And it's a really big mistake to make. It does happen, but the copy and paste on your applications doesn't work. Not every company is looking for the same thing. They're looking for some similar things, but they'll always link it back to their own values and culture and what they're looking for in the skills for the role. So this young lady designed a database. She has good proficiency in coding, although in a tech role I'd be looking for that kind of information right up at the top. She's developed a web application. She's worked on a company website. These are all good things. I didn't even get as far as that until I went back to the email, pasted it and went through, unfortunately. So that's some of the problems highlighted, but then, so I'm going to highlight some of the problems, but I'm also going to highlight to you some of the solutions and where you can actually have an impact. So organisations are hiring, they're highlighting their hiring need to you. They're giving you a job spec, they're giving you all details of the company. They're actually making it, in theory, quite easy for you. Because when you're a professional, when you're working 3, 5, 10 years, you don't get this kind of information. It's not a specialist market, so you're quite lucky there. They're detailing what they're looking for. Now these two things are our hiring problem, whether it be Agoda, Google, Tesco, wherever globally, SCB, Deutsche Bank, that's what we're looking at, and that's our problem. So we're going to spend lots of money to go on campus to talk to you because we want you to come and tell us the other solution. But you can identify the areas where your strengths lie. Don't panic if you haven't got everything on the job spec. If we're asking and saying, well, we use these technologies and we use these programs, we're looking at C++, Java, iOS, GitHub, whatever it may be, you haven't done all that, crikey, interns and graduates, I wouldn't expect you to do, because if you had done all that, you wouldn't be applying for an internship role. You'd probably become a lot more senior. So these are things we like to see. If you've got something like that, an aptitude for coding, programming, I'm just talking about technical roles now just as an example, then that's the kind of thing we're looking for. A bit of aptitude, so don't panic if you don't match the job criteria 100%. I don't think anyone ever will, otherwise you would be applying for that job. It's an experiential level in this as well. If you're on campus and you meet an employer, if you meet an employer like tonight, don't be worried about asking them questions, because that's exactly what the employer's here for. You're not going to annoy them by asking them a question, but make it a relevant question, and make it something that's going to be, linking into selling yourself as a solution to their hiring needs. You're looking for ABC, I've got AB, and I've got a little bit of C, not so much. So this is where I want to develop. Multi-phase recruiting, and I don't want to deliberate too much on this because, again, it will be another huge presentation of probably an hour Imperial earlier this year, which just went on and on about how the different companies recruit, but using numerous phases to assess. These should be relevant to what they're looking for in their job. You should be doing a numerical reasoning test if you're looking for an administrative role. Hopefully you don't necessarily looking for those, but they should all be relevant because they're looking to solicit the skills for the role, the aptitude, and the thought process. If you don't have those skills, if you haven't had a chance to show that in your work, in your studies, in your projects, then they want to see your thought process. They want to see how does your brain work? Can you actually take this problem on? That's why you find a lot of strength-based questioning going on these days, and you also find a lot of these kind of questions. So how many planes are flying above Bangkok at this very moment in time? You're never going to get a right answer, because that's pretty much impossible unless you're working at Bangkok Airport. But the thing is, you may get a chance to show you're working out on why you think it might be 784. So we're testing different aspects that are relevant to the roles that we have on board. And you need to be programming yourself for success. It's a big, big thing. You can have 3 or 4, 5 engagements, interviews, Skype interviews, telephone interviews, assessment centres, numerical tests, inductive reasoning, whatever it may be. It can go on, which should be very short, sharp, sweet. Sometimes it will go in the confidence quite high. But programming yourself for success, anyone recognise this chap? What did you say? Muhammad Ali. Anyone recognise the guy on the floor? There's a bonus point for Sunny Listing. So this was second time I've been in just over a year. Sunny Listing had previously been the boxing champion. I'm going somewhere this time. So Ali famously used in his whole career a visualization technique called future history. Very, very important thing for him to program his mind for success. Can you use that for your job? Of course you can. It's very, very straightforward. I'm going to read a little bit in case, but I want you to get this message because that was taught us a few years ago. And it really helps when you're doing your job search, it helps when you're doing your presentation, it'll help when you're doing your dissertation, for the future history. So the days preceding a match, Ali would picture himself at the end of the fight with arms lifted in the air and the referee proclaiming him champion. He would visualize this so vividly, with total commitment and belief. He would hear the crowds cheering and shouting his name. Probably not going to happen in this presentation, but we can always hope. He would feel how amazing it felt to win. He was totally in the zone. All his energy and focus would then be directed to making this happen. When he walked into the ring, he was extremely well prepared, both mentally and physically. He'd already won the fight in his mind. And so his subconscious mind would be constantly looking out for ways to make the desired outcome true. So he's programmed, he's done his preparation. The ring is where his interview is going to happen, and his win is the graduate job, the intern job. That's a pretty good idea, or a pretty good way to look at this, because you need to think about the outcome you desire when you're going to go to company A, B, or C. You need to be thinking, as well as why you want to be working there, you need to be talking in terms of, I'm going to be working at this organisation. I say that to an employer. I'm going to be working at this organisation. I can visualise that. You will start talking far more positively, far more animatedly. you'll be quite excited, quite excitable, because you can see the end goal. It's important to see the end goal rather than thinking, I've got to do a numerical test, and I'm doing a group exercise, and I've got a break, and I've got something else on. You get bogged down in the detail. You need to be thinking far, far ahead of that. And how are you going to come out of that assessment centre or that interview and actually nail that job? It's a big, big feeling, a big, big thing to take on board. But it's quite an important way to approach when you go to an organisation. While you will be another statistic and you'll be another, they're okay on this and they're okay on that. They're not necessarily looking for okay. We're certainly not looking for okay. We're looking for people who are actually going to come and deliver and come and show us something special. So Agoda and Agoda roles. This is all very new. So 2016 will be our first campus recruitment year. Agoda hasn't really done much before on campus as far as recruiting for graduate roles and intern roles. But two areas we're going to be looking at in particular. These are going to be this is going to be in Bangkok and probably also Budapest. For a market coordinator on our accommodations team. The accommodations guys are people who work with hotels. They work with hotels on a day-by-day, week-by-week basis. They're speaking with hotels. They're ensuring that the rooms that we receive, the allocation we receive from them, in the room types and the number, that they're well advertised on Agoda's website, that they are accessible to a larger market, that we're delivering on our promise to a company to say, we will be able to fill these rooms for you, making sure they're marketed correctly, making sure that the pictures are correct, making sure that the user goes on and finds what they want very, very quickly, and we get that filled. The hotel gets filled through Agoda's channels, the hotel gets paid, and we get paid. It's quite an important role. I think we're dealing now with 700,000 hotels globally, so it's a big, big growing team. They're going to maintain and grow relationships with the hoteliers. Could be finance manager, could be sales manager, general manager in the smaller hotels, the boutiques. It's multi-location. We're looking at business and hospitality degrees, but we're also looking at people who want to work for Agoda. So if you haven't come from those backgrounds, that doesn't necessarily matter. You're not funded by it. You will learn the hotel industry quite quickly and what you need to know for working at Agoda. So that experience is desirable, but not necessarily essential or mandatory. And our second kind of key area is part of the ITD team. It used to be called IT, it's an IT and design team, for our full stack developers. If anyone could stand up today and say, I am an intern, I'm a full stack developer, I'd be staggered. Because the kind of long list of desirables that they have is just that, it's very, very long. What we're looking for is students from IT, from computer sciences, could be students from science disciplines. Programming, coding, aptitude for programming and coding is a big, big thing. Now, you're never going to come along and see you've got C++, Java, iOS, GitHub, C/, and whatever else. Hadoop's probably only been going for a couple of years. I don't think that's been taught anymore at universities, so you won't necessarily have that experience. But if you have that attitude, if you've done a little bit of coding in your own time, a bit of experiential learning, and you want to work in that area, we're the biggest technology company in Asia, I believe. You want to say that and something I'll get kind of like a really dirty look. In Asia, certainly we are. We're not known as a technology company. Certainly not. Norman Collier. We're certainly not known as a campus. But this is where our bread and butter is. Without the technology, we can't service the hotels. The technology will be on. And that's me done, I think. Thank you very much for listening. Hopefully you were well.
Hello, I'm Daniel, and I'm the digital marketing manager for AIP Global, and I will be the moderator for the panel discussion. Before I start, I would like first to thank you all for coming today again, and to tell you one thing. I don't want this panel discussion to be just a one-way discussion between me and the guest, but I really would like you all to participate in it, so As long as you have questions, just raise your hand and someone will pass you a microphone or just shout loud and you will make your question. So, well, we can start. Me, ladies first. I wanted to ask you, I know that you worked in New York before coming to Bangkok, another big town, totally different from this, I've been there. And I wanted to ask you how it is different to the job that you got in New York with respect coming to Thailand and especially coming to Bangkok, to Google Thailand.
I think like there's different opportunities. Like in Thailand, yes, we're like developing a country, and like the people we serve, like they don't actually know a lot about our product. So I think like the big opportunities for working in a city like Bangkok is that as a marketing, they do a lot of education angles to like people. Like Google's product is not very easy to understand, like especially for like advertising product, not search. But like here we usually see a lot of opportunities of like education for like people to understand the product and how we would push it to grow. New York is different. New York people like product adoption is like much higher, but it's more like what are the real innovations that we can push over there. In New York, I work in advertising agency, Gray. I'm not sure if you've heard about Gray, but in our same building, we work in the same building. We have BuzzFeed, we have Facebook, we have BuzzFeed in the same building. So every time we have an idea, we walk up to BuzzFeed, we talk to BuzzFeed. We have like Facebook and Google like across the street. So like the exposure in big city like that is that you work with like a top-notch companies that you can create like innovation like for people who know who's like very tech savvy. So it's like a different things that we do. I'm not saying it's not fun working in Bangkok. I think it's so much fun to trying to help people to learn and use technology to like improve their life. So I think it's different.
Thank you. Mach, I have a question for you. You are Farang like me, and so I think since you're here only since 12 weeks, you say, how you're leaving the let's say not clash, but the confrontation with the Thai culture here? You're doing recruiting here, right? And how is different between your work in London and the recruiting that you did before for Deutsche Bank and Expedia? And yeah, how is the Thai pool of talent? And
it's visible, but you really have to search for it. I mentioned a little bit before about access to students and employability and careers advisory services. Now I've worked in a few markets over the years. In my first few weeks I found it very, very difficult to get anywhere with a Thai university, through careers advisor, through an academic. I was staggered to be told that I had to write a letter to a university for us to get on campus representation. Not an email, to actually write a physical letter, which I don't think I've done since about 12 years old. And I had to write to thank you my relatives for Christmas presents. There's not a lot of email traffic from that. When you're a tech company, you can rely on the email, so you can send email after email, doesn't really work. So telephone, writing, when you're in front of the students, we were at AIT a couple of weeks ago, it's very, very good. Agoda's profile isn't so well known for campus recruiting, but it's known for everyone books. A lot of people are booking their travel. When you go to campus in Italy, when you go in the UK, when you go in where it may be Australia, they're a lot more prepared. Universities are a lot more prepared. Companies want to engage with students and will go out the red carpet. So Thailand is a newer market, I think, for that scale. I'm not saying we're the first people to go on campus, we're clearly not. Other companies have been doing it, but I think it's going to need to open up in the next couple of years because the recruitment's shifting. UK isn't just looking at the UK market anymore, US isn't just looking at the US market anymore. It's been globalised for the last couple of years, and we're starting to pick up from other countries, other continents.
Thank you. And I have a question for you both. You both come from very big companies, and I was curious actually. How do you manage to maintain the culture of the company, even if you're spread worldwide and yeah, you have many different HQ around the world? I mean, I know about, I think all of us that meets, I've seen something about what happened in the Silicon Valley, for example, for Google. And what about here in Bangkok? Is how it works here? How do you maintain the same working culture that you have around the world in all the places?
Like, actually, really like Masha's presentation about like choose the company with the value of the company, the culture of the company. So I don't think every company has as strong and as great value like in comparison to each. But I think like if you look at the company and it's not just about a job, it's not about money, but you look at the company that has the culture that you respect and you wanted to be part of, that's very important. And those companies tends to be able to maintain their standards. So I think Google is one of them. And I think like how we maintain the standard is because we actually starting from recruiting. We're recruiting the people that has the same value. And probably just one out of 100,000 that we recruit. And it's going through like probably 7 rounds of interview with 7 people, and everybody actually have to say yes. It's not like 6 say yes and 1 say no. We will not take them. So we'll make sure that everybody in the panel say yes. That's how we maintain the company from the get-go, which is from the recruiting. When you go into the company, I think it's through a lot of activities that we do in the company. We have a culture team who creating activities on like a weekly and monthly basis to make sure that everything we do is like works with the value that we have. So I guess like as a student, make sure you pick the company that has a strong value, that is the value that you want it to be with, because I spend more time in the office versus like anywhere else, right? And second, like those companies, they really look for someone who has the same value. So if your value is not the same, but you really wanted to get in, you wanted to ask yourself if you really gonna have to do something to make sure that you fit with that company.
I can only add to that in the sense that a lot of smart organizations now using more and more data for their people. They're hiring in talent management, certainly internally, and Google for years have been doing a lot of the analytics side. And in human resources circles are quite well known for it, and the success factors internally. You can then take and go and search for externally, which is actually what you just said. But I know from experience with Expedia over the last 12 months, there's a lot of data analytics going on that can impact upon how you go out and search for people, what channels you're going to use, what values you're looking for, what competency you're looking for, and making sure everything links back to values of the company. It's such a big piece now, which is why I think I go back to you can't go and do the same application twice. You can't go and apply to 50 companies and try and do the same thing, because they are looking for similar technical skills, but they're looking at very, very different kind of people. And I think, as Nani said earlier, we're looking for a lot of the same skill sets in some of our tech people, but I would hazard a guess and say what Agoda is looking for and our values of the company are going to be different from what Google are looking for in their values. And that's not a bad thing.
Thank you both. And if someone will start to make any questions, just feel free to raise your hand. Nothing? No question?
I have a question which may not be relevant to internships, but I'm curious, where did it start for you guys? I guess when I'm asking, what have you done? What did it take you to be where both of you are right now, working for such big companies and in the positions that you have right now?
I also really like what Masha said about so for me, I actually graduated from Thai class in Chulalongkorn. So I've never studied in international school before, but I wanted to be in a multinational company, and I wanted if I want to do it, I can do it. And I started from joining Procter & Gamble first. So Procter & Gamble in Thailand, and by that time, my English is not as good. So, but I know that all of my colleagues will be Thai, but in terms of like communication, the office would be in English. So that's when I'm going to be able to like learn English. So I was in Procter for 6 years, and by like year 4, I said I wanted to work in the U.S. So I'm trying to find ways to work in the U.S. and then through Procter, I know some recruiters at agency in the U.S. and I work my way to be able to get them to take me through like connections, a lot of discussion and everything, and then I get to go to the U.S. and they give me a work permit, and I'm not having green card or anything, so I just go. And then from the U.S., I said I'll work here a couple of years, and I wanted to work in tech company, and I don't have tech background, so I start learning by myself all about like tech knowledge, reading all the articles that I can read, and support people. So I think like what I'm trying to say is like your will is more important than anything. It's more important than your education, in my opinion. So where you want to go is up to you. That's how I start. But then I think like in terms of like the step you go, it's very important. I always started from a very big company, and I see a value of that in a sense that in P&G, as a global company, I have so many connections from P&G. Actually, like my connection helps me to go to New York. My connection connects me to someone in Google as well. So like big company comes with big people, comes with lots of connections. So that's a good thing. I'm not saying that working in a smaller company or a startup is not good, but this is just from my own experience. Like having a lot of connection is also a good thing. So a connection, and that's my story. So.
Thank you. I'm going to sound like an absolute fraud here because I was a rubbish student. I say that, you know, it took me a long, long time to get where I am, and that was through will and hard work. And my school report said that I was a latter-day beach boy, which is a nice way of saying I turned to school to socialise. Didn't do so well at university either. I think what that has given me is a real appreciation of how hard the graduate market is and how much assistance students need to get where they want to be, because you don't necessarily know what's out there. And I appreciate that, and that's not a condescending comment whatsoever. That's pure. There's so many different things going on and so much noise that it takes for some recruiters to stand up and go and speak to student audiences. And there are a lot of good recruiters out there who will go and do this and tell you a little bit more and give you a bit more insight and a bit more help along the way because of the competition. So from getting from doing only a little bit at university, then going to work on a graduate program for what's now IHG, it's going to be hotels, it wasn't called that back then. But then to come along to a recruitment phase and recruit in hospitality and now recruit for an online travel agent was a long path that I probably didn't actually think I was going to go down. Internships weren't so big when I went to university, you know, but again that gives me an appreciation of the value of an internship now and how the internship market is probably almost a third size bigger than the graduate market. And a lot of interns who are smart will know that they can actually secure their graduate job by doing a good internship and getting an offer at the end of it and taking themselves up the market and giving yourself a final year where you can just go and do your studies and not worry about anything because you've got your graduate job on the top of it.
Thank you. And actually, with the last thing that you said that right now, with the fact that the internship reward is that big, actually it's more, let's say, it's more, do you think that since the internship reward is that, sorry, all the heat is killing me, really. As you can see, I'm sweating like hell. Thanks for shutting down that. Anyway, I wanted to ask you, I know that you both didn't did any internship in your university career, right? And but I wanted to ask you, how much do you think it has changed, like from when you did the university actually to now? The world of finding a job, since even thanks to the fact that now almost everyone looks for an internship after graduating, or even during before graduate. How do you think this is affecting the world of finding a job? And do you think it makes it more easy to get a job, a good job, or just a waste of time? I don't know.
Definitely not a waste of time. I know from UK figures, from the Association of Graduate Recruiters, the AGL, graduate employer members, which are about 800 of the biggest companies in the UK, report that a third of their graduate intake is from their previous year's internships. So automatically, just over 30% of the graduate roles in 2016 will probably be gone now. Sorry, I'm just all really negative and full of bad news. It's not the intention. HR is to be really, really nice people. Just to give you an idea now, that shift has seen people who've graduated and finished their studies take on internships. The graduate market has kind of grown a little bit because of that as well. But then there is a knock-on effect of interns looking at second, third years looking for internships, also some graduates looking for internships, because they still see, even at the end of their studies, the value of getting that internship and securing that role to make themselves more employable, to get that experience, not just for CV, but to make themselves more employable for their graduate role, to have the skills, the office experience, and getting up at 7 o'clock in the morning actually going to work, office etiquette, these kind of things that you can't necessarily be taught in the classroom.
I think when we look at people who's applied for a company, we wanted to hear your real experience, like your story. So like thinking of people who have gone through university without internship and one that has. I think like the one that done internship will probably have more story to tell, like more exact like things that they do, the project that they achieve through internship. So that's a big plus. I think the other thing is that if some of you are in like a first year university or second year, like you have multiple like summer that you can do multiple internships. I feel like a lot of students like don't know what they love. So I feel like it's such a good opportunity to like do internship of like things that in like the top 2 things that you think that suit you. And that's like when you don't have to waste your time in the real life job. Like try this and try that, and then you kind of get to feel like which way you want it to go in the future. So I think like if I can turn back time, I want to do internships since like I was like first year university.
To answer that slightly, if anyone's in that position where they are first year looking for first internship, it is pretty much a free hit. You can go and do that, and I've heard a lot of students when they come for their second internship, their mid-year internship, they say, well, I've tried the financial banking thing, but I didn't really like it, so I'll try something else. With the same skills, want to do an analytical role in a different field. So you can actually make that happen. And it's not you committing yourself for life to go and work for an investment bank. It's just you giving that experience. So first year internships, if you can get them, absolutely build those.
So maybe back to the education for a bit. Recruiting question for a bit. So I do believe like you're gonna get a lot of applications from like a lot of candidates. And the thing that I do believe as well that you're looking for the one who have passion and teamwork as a like collaboration. But somehow in resume, people can like just try to revise the language into like okay I achieve that and on the project that. But when you face them like in terms of interview, how are you gonna know them in person? Like how do you gonna know that this one has a passion, this one have like can do like the teamwork really well? Because you maybe have just a short time or they really limited of time to build that. What kind of person and how you can get to know that person
Well, if it comes down to it, there will be questions around that, as in it could be a constant debate, which is a little bit kind of stage format now, maybe more strength-based questioning around how you succeed in a team. It can be as straightforward as that. They're not all going to be massively, complex questions about your technical skills. So, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Sorry. So you will get questions that are directly asking you that, because that's the best way. It's hard to show that on a CV. It's a very paper-heavy industry. There's a lot of students who are going to leave university with the same classification degree in the same subject, and then compete against all the students globally, or all the students in the same market doing the same. And you can even show some of those kind of things on your CV as well. If you look at your extracurricular stuff, saying in a paragraph you're a great team player is one thing, but then what does it show above and beyond your university that you've done, which means you're a team player? If you've done team sports, you've done society stuff, you've done charity stuff, what's the character that we can read on the page? You only get a little bit of space on your CV to do that. If anyone's got a CV of more than one page, revise that and take away the other 2 or 3 pages or so on, 7 pages of the day from keep used to other papers. Just don't do it. But do make sure you put a little bit of effort in to talk about what you are above and beyond being a student doing this, and your grades, and your interest is quite a key thing to show that.
I think like the extra curriculum is very important. Like, for example, if you're going to be in a job that you need to speak a lot, debate a lot about sales, like I'm used to be in a debate team, like that's interesting. If you wanted to show teamwork, like Machar said, like sport teams, so like think about like the attributes that the employer is looking for, and think about activities that relate to that would make your CVs much more interesting. I think for the interviews then, if you know, like our companies, I guess like we've gone through like 4, 5, 6, 7 rounds, and people who's interviewing you like was quite skilled, and they train a lot on how to like read people. I think like 7 people, and everybody said yes, 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 yes. It means that you have something that's really interesting. Usually when there's a doubt, like 1 out of 7 will say, I'm not sure about that, and that's not gonna work. So that's how we use like panel people.
Okay, thank you. And anyone else want to make a question? Guys? Yes. It would be hard to reach you.
So earlier this year, I read an article that if you search the right terms on Google, they'll try to recruit you. So I want to know what's the term.
I've never heard.
I think he's referring to the guy that was searching about really crazy stuff about coding, and like
And Google tried to
a
hide it.
page come out and starts to tell him, yeah.
Well, that's possible. Like, well, like a big data company, right? So if there's like a search activity that's of interest, you might want to talk to them, but that's like 1 in a million. Don't bet on that.
Don't start to look around on super crazy coding stuff. Guys, there is someone else that wants to make a question?
Oh, it's really hard.
No,
Wait,
get this
since we
side.
have 2 microphones, I think we
That's alright, she can
two
shout.
to like do. Oh, that's amazing. This is for you.
This is
She
for
does
our
not
guests.
need-
That's so lovely.
Well, as Ming said, the passion is a bit more important than knowledge. So that's why I'm asking, if you were in US or in UK right now and you would receive a CV from an applicant who graduated in university in Thailand, what would you think of that? What would be your first thoughts on that? So you see what I'm saying, right? My main reason is that if we want to work with international companies and if we want to work abroad, not only in Thailand, what do people from outside of Thailand think of Thai degree? It really worries me.
Yeah.
Worries everybody.
Well, I've had so many applicants from so many different countries, so it's Thai specific. I've worked in companies where they weren't sponsoring visas, so that's an easy answer, but then I've also worked in organisations that do. They're set against the same criteria. You'd be surprised at some of the scoring criteria that there are, how detailed they are. So you're not just looking at UK first 2-1, 2-2, you're looking at grade point averages, you're looking at Scottish Boonritthongchai in Scotland, they will actually look at the GPA classification in Thailand. Does that meet the minimum criteria? Okay, right, let's move on. Questions that have been answered against the same criteria. It's not that this is Thai candidate, this is UK candidate, this is UK role. There can't be favoritism there, otherwise which would be the point of doing it. And you'd be very, very one-dimensional. You don't build international companies by sticking with the plans for their own country. So I've never seen or heard of anything like that apart from board agencies down actually international companies to find some companies that are doing that, because you're not just going to apply for a role and stay in the UK for the rest of your life. You want people who are mobile. I think when you look at international applicants, you look at people who have more than one language, possibly even live internationally at a very young age, so self-sufficient, a bit more worldly wise than someone who's living in London, working and studying in London, never left London. They're key criteria as well. We're looking at upward mobility, so that in maybe 5 years' time, company X is going to open up an office in Thailand. No, hey, we've got some Thai people who've got that international exposure. We can usually go in there, they'll know the local market, so it's quite important.
I actually think it depends on the company. So I know some company that only hire like Ivy League students, stuff like that, right? So if you're not from Ivy League, then it's not. But then like there's a lot of company that graduating from the university is like, if you graduate with like an okay grade, or if it's bad grade but you have a lot of other story to tell, that's fine. Like Google never look at university. So basically they look at like, okay, you have some degree and you have a great story to tell. So I think like right now, your experience, your story, what you actually do is much more important in my opinion. And I've gone through a lot of like recruiting training. We need to be very careful in terms of judging people from like university, from like gender, from religious and stuff like that. We try to not look at that too much, because you start judging people from something that maybe not as important.
And I think that
Some comments work, sometimes not.
I think there was someone else that raised his hands. That back, I remember that it was.
You pass the
It
mic.
has to make a long trip.
I can shout, but I don't want to.
Yeah, you can shout it, no problem.
Okay. Okay, so what are the main things? So what are the main things you think that schools and universities should be teaching students that they're not, to prepare them for the real world? So for example, mine would be money. Financial education. People should be taught it. I don't know why they're not. So,
Who wants to go first?
I'd say the universities need to be working a lot closer with employers to understand what employers are looking for and what matters, because to a certain way, and if it's a degree that's in the field you're going into, if you've got a degree, a master's degree, then that's great. But coming out of university without the tools to actually understand what an employer is looking for, how to engage with an employer, it's going to be really, really tough. So, you'll see around the globe a lot of rankings, and some of them are just really ranked bad. You'll see the QS World Rankings of universities. You'll see the employability rankings of universities. You'll see various others, and then also employers that are ranked as well. Have a look at the criteria, what they're ranked on and why. Because if it's to do with their research, that might not necessarily be a big thing. If it's to do with their employability rankings, which is quite a new thing that's happened in the last 2 or 3 years, for me as an employer, it's a big thing. And if I see the top 30 in the employability rankings, university, I'm going to go there, because I know that the careers advisors and the careers advisory department will prepare the students to interview, to meet employers, to think a little bit more about what they want when they're looking at their job search, to give them all the kind of basic tools to meet with organisations. Whereas some of the companies who are very, very good on research, or the number of international students they take on, might not quite get that. The students won't get the exposure. So it's in there. It's definitely a big part of it. And you'll see smart employers will start to look away from Russell Group rankings 92, all the kind of big rankings to do with prestige of the university. Ivy was mentioned as well. And those universities are actually talking to students about how to get a job. And if they're inviting employers in to deliver presentations, which a lot of them do as well, then grasp that opportunity, because you're going to hear it from the horse's mouth, and you can't go far wrong with them.
I just think like the overall overall concept that I can think of is that university needs to make sure that students get to do more practical things. Like the theory part of its entire university is too much. How can university give students, like put students into a real situation, make them work on a real case, make them fix the real issue. So I think that's going to be the most important thing to see, like the development in the student. So that's like a general concept. But as I talk about like us who's like not part of the people who set curriculum, I feel like everybody can put themselves into like a real life situation where you can start fixing problems, start joining startups, start working on like a case study, like to do that a lot, and then you have a lot of rich story to tell.
The student groups that will get together, sometimes through society as well, which is a great sort of thing. We go and approach employers directly and say, okay, we're 6 people, and these are the skills we've got. You're looking for a project to do. You're trying to solve a business problem for you. Can you give us something to do? The organization would say, no, unless they don't have any work to do. There's companies like, I know Agoda is one, Expedia is one, there's probably staff and others, absolutely rammed with new ideas. They're also managing the current business, so if they're doing new ideas, they just sit on the shelf. But a group of students come along and say, can we come and do this for you? And some of them are getting pretty well paid for it. That work that they're completing is then getting used in the organisation, win-win all the way through. That's an experience you can put down in your CV as well. Some of the universities actually invite employers in to do that, to give them business projects, business games. Gamification of the campus recruitment now is a big, big thing. And it's not just a case of play this little game and guess this, and if you get the right answer, we might give you a job. They're actually looking to see if you can do the kind of work that they want to do, or if you can solve a problem that's not yet been solved. So it's a big, big, big piece that's not really been, you don't see it globally at the moment, but it's certainly a growing piece.
Nice. Someone else?
Oh, you have the microphone. Okay. If I want to be a competitor of Google and Agoda, what I have to prepare, how I have to prepare. And another question, you are employee of Google and Agoda, right? If you have one thing to change, if you have one thing to change in your company, what do you want to change and why?
If I want to be a competitor, what I should expect to do, and be a competitor to do. And the second is as a employee of what to
To be a competitor,
Sorry,
companies going on
sorry.
There's plenty of startups you can see.
Yeah,
it's only a few years since Airbnb came along. And I was reading former MD of Google Southeast Asia. There's now at Airbnb. He famously said that Agoda were the best company, the best technology company during this, and then he's going to look for competitors. So maybe not time to think there. So the second part of the question was?
If you have one thing to change in your company, what do you want to change and why?
The coffee in our canteen is I'm too early in the game to go to say I want to change something. What we do as an organisation is pretty cool. We don't talk externally about what we're developing because there's a lot of competition in the organization as well. I couldn't say anyone I've seen so far, aside from the
Yes. If you want to try the microphone.
Yeah. It's real, right? So we have a certain section I want to know what motivates you to stay so long hours in your office? Is just a salary? Or is just, what is in the end, because you're just making your boss rich, you know, like what's good for you?
Well, no, I think like the job that you do needs to make to be important to you somewhat, right? So the reason why I work long hours because I wanted to make sure that my project is successful, and it's something that I'll be proud of. So that's like sounds like a sugar-coated question, but it's sugar-coated answer, but it's really true. Like if you work on something that you really wanted to work on and do great, then I'll say long hours. I think the second part of it is that I think whoever's got into like this big company, usually they're looking for someone who has a lot of ownership. So I think it's like ingrained in me that it's my ownership that I need to like get it done. So I think that's overall that's would be my answer. I'm not sure if there's any other aspect.
I mean, I personally not been flipping, but I don't work long hours. We have flexible core hours. I start a little bit earlier because we just live early anyway. I kind of jump to me about 5 o'clock in the morning, and then getting to work maybe about 8:30, finish at 6 on the dot and go home. I've got a great work-life balance, and I think that's been quite a shift in the last maybe 5 years. When I started work 15 years ago, it was about doing long hours and really showing really like being seen. You don't have that. Agoda now you have that Expedia. Work-life balance is a much bigger concept now. So when you come in, you do your work and you work hard. You stay if you think there's things to do. One point to the next day. If there's something important to deliver that you need to do, and then you might do an extra hours. But that's the exception around the world. I see that a lot of colleagues. Many companies now that are saying the expectation is come in and work 50-hour days, because you're not going to get that from these students, because this market has actually changed a lot of the ways of thinking for employers. That it's not just about salaries, it's about the CS and the corporate social policy. It's about balance. So the graduate market is doing one thing in those last 5 years that it's not great, but it's think about its approach to students.
It's very difficult answer when we talk about work-life balance, right? So for example, even look at Google. Usually we don't have like a structure on how we work. There's a goal. Like the goal is to do this, but the way to achieve
with transferable skills, you're not going to go on campus and find necessarily advantages. So we've got 20 so transferable skills are quite a key thing. Thinking back to usually first year internships, and someone who might have gone and done 3 to 6 months in an investment bank, but they're taking from them quite a few skills that we would see in an online travel agent that are quite important. You know, they're working in an office, the responsibility, some of the results that they come out with. So I don't see any issue with transferring between sectors, especially such an amazing. I've seen it happen at more senior levels, people moving across sectors. So there's a great opportunity.
There we go. Usually my voice is already loud, but everyone can hear it clear now. So my name is Jens. I'm originally from Estonia, in Thailand for the last 10 years. Used to study in the leading universities here. And right now I'm one of the co-founders of JobNisit. We are a modern career development platform. So whereas really companies are looking more and more at universities and young professionals, some of the more innovative companies like Agoda are doing campus recruitment. There's still a lot of companies who are not very good at actually approaching young professionals. They don't really know how to talk with you guys and how to basically establish a common language. So whereas you might think that it's difficult, it's challenging to find the right job in the current market or the right company to work for, then I can tell you that it's really no easier for the companies to find the right people, to identify the right people. So really with the current fast-growing economy, I would say that literally every single company is constantly hiring and open for talented young people. So it's not so much about right job, it's more about what kind of career do you want to build. It's not about where you will be working for the next year, but where you want to be in 10 years, and really identifying what kind of company actually provides you that kind of opportunity. How do you understand what your passion is exactly, as there was a mention about hobbies, you know, what kind of skills have come along from that? Why are you actually pursuing those particular hobbies? And how can you translate those abilities? How can you use that background to your advantage to build a career? Because ultimately, really, career is about doing something that you love. That should be the first thing when you're looking at a job. Not the salary, not whether your mother told that this company is great. she will not like that. But more importantly, that will this company actually allow you to do something that you really care about? Because if you are doing something that's close to your interest, you will be learning actively, you will be meeting people with similar interests, and you will be developing at a very, very fast pace. And that's something that companies are really looking at, people who are evolving and getting better by the day. And that's when companies really can build a career path for you and show you, listen, with all of this passion, with all of the things that you want to do and the project that you want to lead, here are the opportunities for you to grow. So that's really important. So where we come in is really using an algorithm, first of all, to kind of look at the resumes that the applicants, young professionals, submit or upload to our website. And then our algorithm is basically using some very, very complex machine learning and natural language processing methodologies to recommend jobs which are actually relevant to you. But more importantly, really empowering you, showing that there's a lot of opportunities out there that you're actually qualified to do as a young professional. But it's more for you to really understand or ask the questions that what are these companies doing, where are these companies going, and what company you really want to be part of. So really, as it was mentioned already as well with what these companies are looking for, as we are talking to over almost 500 of the industry-leading companies in Thailand, I would say that what really companies value is for you to go into an interview and exactly say that why are you there? What is the particular reason that you want to be in that company? That is the single most important question. And they also